Good morning. Thank you very much. First of all, allow me to congratulate the organizers, the management of the Oversight Division from the National Bank of Romania and CEE in Perspective for the 5 years in a row, but also within the pandemic period, so amazing antibodies generated by the team here. Secondly, allow me to briefly present the panelists. We put aside the US people, so there is American Express and Visa, so welcome Eli, welcome Conrad. I'm glad having you here. Gabriela, Banking Association from Romania. Then we do have also Ministry of Finance, Constantinos, welcome to the National Bank of Romania. Very glad to be here. And National Bank of Romania, Ionuț. The perspective is very diverse. We would like to have an open conversation, including hot topics, as well as opening the floor for the next panels. We are glad to host also directors from the Central Bank of Romania, talking about alternative payment solutions, talking about cash, talking about fraud, so on and so forth. So happy to start. Allow me, first of all, to take away from the Prime Vice Governor discussion financial inclusion, financial autonomy, security, access. All of them are key points for the actual context that we are living. I'm also happy to share with you that my personal concerns include governance today, include strategic autonomy in digital finance, future-proof payments infrastructure, interoperability, but also how to build trust within the digital ecosystem. I have prepared 3 key questions to invite the panelists to contribute, but please don't be strict, rigid within the question. Take time to open up the floor and let's say create a conversation also with the public here. The first question that I would like to address, as a policy concern, how are the dynamics of the regulations, PSD3, PSR, and the open finance developments implementing the banking and financial business models in CEE countries, and where is the value shifting? So the keyword here is the value. Please, I would like your personal touch on this value word that is open, but I'm sure will be a personal angle for each and every one of you. I will start with Gabriela. She's very stressed, but representing the banking industry. And Gabriela, please feel free to mix up Romanian and English if you feel like adding extras. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Indeed, I feel a little bit stressed because I'm not used to speak English, but I promise you that I'll try to speak. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor for me to be invited here near the specialists from digitalization, payments, and so on. So I'll introduce my view over the subject today, PSD3 and PSR. I think in the Western European countries, compared to Romania, we should have a different view, because in Romania it's not about only innovation. We talk also about filling some gaps, and the gaps are low financial inclusion, high informal economy, preference for cash, and also low digital skills for the Romanians. Indeed, the financial inclusion is low in Romania, and we have a lot of reasons for that, a lot of structural reasons. I believe that now financial inclusion is about 75%, while the European average is about 95 or maybe more than 95%. But we have some reason. If you look to the picture of that unbanked people, you see a person age 65 plus, low digital competencies, low education, and low revenues. So these are the structural reasons that the financial inclusion in Romania is still low. Even we have a basic bank account free of charge starting 2017 for the vulnerable people, and starting 2024, is free of charge, the basic bank account for all the people in Romania if they don't have a bank account. So the reason related to cost is not a valid one. Is not a valid one. So the secondly, preference for cash in Romania is still strong. It's still strong because there are companies that allow this informal economy. The weight of the informal economy, of the Greek economy to GDP, it's about 26%. So it's very high compared to the other European countries. This is one of the reasons we don't succeeded in the past to introduce some regulation, some legislation, legal framework in order to upgrade the digital and the financial inclusion. In the same time, and I say that digital competencies, low digital competencies in Romania, we have 28% of the Romanians that have digital competencies, basic digital competencies, compared to the average of 56% as a European average. These are the reasons. And I think open finance should focus not only to create more APIs in Romania, because there is no open banking. If open banking will focus only to the bank population, the added value for the economy will be a minimum, will be null. So we should focus to create inclusive, digital and safer digitalization in Romania. This is the scope, in my opinion, of PSD3 and PSR. Indeed, we have some specific points that shows us that in Romania digitalization increased compared to the last years. If we look to the figures, I looked last night to the figures and I saw the number of cards in Romania increased by 31% in 2 years, 2023, 2025, to 28.6 million cards in Romania. That's a good news for us. Also, the transfer credit transaction increased, not increased, doubled in 3 years. So this is a good news for us. But in the same time, we look at PSR and brings us more specific measures in order to protect the clients. It's focused for protecting the clients and the transaction, while the PSD3 focus more on regulation, on surveillance, and many other regarding capital requirements and collaboration between the companies, the banks, the fintechs, and other companies that are acting here. But as I said before, if we want to focus only on bank population, will not succeed to add value in the economy. If I look to the question you addressed me, I would like to underline that what will be the changes for the business model for the banks? First of all, the banks will become central hubs, should become central hubs, should become a player that will sell products even from other banks and from other companies. But we have also risks. I will name 3 of the risks. First, the security one, because our interface, when we connect for the connection with the fintech, will have more risks than now. We have risk of fraud. I am also in contact with my colleagues from Anti-Fraud Committee, from National Bank of Romania, from Romanian Police, from National Security Directorate, and so on. When the fraudsters will ask, when they will impersonate the figure of the banks, and they will impersonate and will ask the consent, low digitalization in Romania says that the customer will give the consent also to the fraudsters. So we have to be able to take some measures in order to to mitigate this risk of fraud, and also the legal risk, because when we provide data to other companies, there is a risk who is responsible for this data if it will have a breach of security. Indeed, the value added for PSR and PSD3 will be to go from financial product to global ecosystem, and to go from digitalization, or digital, simple digital, to a secure digital trust.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. Now with let's say with a US suit managing Amex, and with a European hat, Eli from European Payment Institutions Federation will try to give his perspective on let's say policy, regulations, but value. Where is value shifting, Eli? Please.
Dan, thank you very much first for the invitation. I'm really glad to be back here. I've been part of the first edition, and every time I'm invited, I'm happy to come back again to Bucharest and to Romania. So thanks again for that. Gabriela, I mean, I think she did very well also in English, so no problem at all. You can go on. I think you're great. Maybe also one more precision before I answer your question, Dan. So I'm here today on behalf of EPIF, so the European Payments Institutions Federation. So what I will be sharing with you is not only the perspective of American Express, but rather like of the whole industry, of the whole payments institutions industry. And for us as a PI industry, when we think about PSD, for us this is like our mother or our father. It is because of the PSD1 at the time in 2009. This is what made us, be there. This is really this was the opportunity created by the European institutions, and we should be grateful for that, to be innovative in a way, to have, a competitor to the banking system. So this has been really a very positive step, I would think, for consumers in general. So shifting quickly to PSD3 and PSR, I think it's a very good piece of legislation, and we should also thank the Cypriot presidency also for making it happen at the latest stages. We believe the biggest strength, especially from the consumer side, are better protection, more rights to consumers, and this is definitely a right step, especially in the combat against fraud. I would mention that normally, when it comes to the origination of fraud, and this morning we have been discussing this with other speakers, I think this is only a first step. We need to strengthen this, because we have seen that the origination of fraud is not anymore, classical, or what we used to know in the last, 10 years or 15 years. Today, the origination of fraud is mainly, happening elsewhere other than the financial sector. So it is from online platforms, it is from telecom operators and others. And right now, the whole burden, or most of the burden, let's say, is supported by the financial institutions, so by banks, payment institutions, etc. The PSD3 PSR has started a first shift, recognizing the problem is bigger than only financial institutions. So that's why what I think should happen in the future, in order to have a real combat of fraud, is to involve, the different stakeholders. So again, financial interests, financial institutions, plus platforms and telecom operators, into working on a framework, and to have, at the end of the day, a real, compensation. It's not only like financial institutions that should be liable for everything that happens there. This would give the right incentives for different players, to keep investing, and then to have a better fight of fraud. So PSD3, PSR, a very good positive aspect there. Also continuing on the fraud aspect, well, PSD2 has done a lot when it comes to strong customer authentication and, into making transactions secure. And many stakeholders, have invested heavily into this to make it happen. There are still, I think, certain areas that, again, still need to be improved. And now we have the famous level 2 measures. Most of you are familiar, hopefully, with the European Banking Authority and the regulatory technical standard. And one key aspect I will mention today is like behavioral biometrics. Behavioral biometrics is like, to make it as simple as possible, it is when you have, different elements based on your behavior, that could somehow authenticate you much better, from the issuing side. So we could make sure that the person behind that transaction is the person who is intending to make this transaction. Right now, under the SCA, only only what we call it the inherence factor. So only biometrics with the physical factor are seen as a valid factor of authentication. We believe, the regulator should go further into allowing this behavioral biometrics, because the results that are seen when deploying these, technologies are very efficient. The fraud really is decreasing heavily when behavioral biometrics is used. So we hope, again, that this should be like the last mile into this area that regulators and policymakers can have, because this will make also the user experience much easier. We should also look for the next year's technologies, and not be stuck into technologies from the past. So this is also, we believe, a key aspect there in PSD3 PSR. And then last but not least, I think what is the real benefit is to have a very diverse industry, a very diverse PI sector. You have the banks, you have now the merger between electronic money institutions and payment institutions. We believe this is really going in the right direction. We should focus always on innovation and not be stuck, I would say, into debates from the past. And that's, maybe in the next round I'll say a bit more about this, but it's really key, to keep competitiveness and innovation as the heart of the European project, and not go into isolationism, I would say.
Thank you very much for your kind input. So security for all, going end-to-end. If it's the invitation of the market to go end-to-end, we need to go end-to-end as regulators. I will invite Konstantinos to provide his view on this policy concern as well as value shifting. But please, Konstantinos, having track record background within the Ministry of Finance under the Cypriot presidency, but also your research interests, please go even further. Try to connect the actual regulatory framework with other, let's say, hot topics related with digital finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. Thank you, everyone, and many thanks for the cordial invitation. Please allow me to speak about how the dynamics of the regulations of PSD3, PSR impact banking, but also financial services models from a digital finance perspective. And then we will also see how any open finance developments and value shifting looks in this context. So, digital finance perspective in the context of PSD3 PSR. Why and how? It is because PSD3 PSR regulations bring within their regulatory perimeter a type of the digital private settlement assets that we all know under the term stablecoins. More specifically, PSD3 PSR bring within their regulatory perimeter the so-called electronic money tokens. These are so-called stablecoins regulated under the EU Crypto Assets Regulation, MiCA. They are redeemable at par and can be issued not only by banks, but also by electronic money institutions. Now, how does this inclusion in the context of the PSD3 PSR take place, and what are the practical implications thereof? First of all, it takes place by following means. Electronic money tokens are assimilated to electronic money and subsequently to funds. This is how they enter the regulatory perimeter. What are now the practical implications for banking models, but also for financial services providers models as a result of this inclusion of electronic money tokens in the PSD3 PSR? As we saw regarding banks, we have a new instrument being added within the regulatory perimeter, which is not only bank issued. It can also be issued by electronic money institutions. Now, what are the implications for financial services providers? It affects them in two respects. First of all, it affects the so-called crypto asset service providers. Why that? Because certain crypto asset services, when provided in respect of the electronic money tokens we just mentioned and which have entered the regulatory perimeter are on the spot assimilated to payment services. This practically means that the crypto asset service provider in question must either obtain an additional authorization under the payment sectoral rules or partner with a payment institution, with a payment services provider. At the same time, the PSD3 PSR regulation, as shaped in their final stage, they also provide that payment services providers may offer certain crypto asset services which are being deemed economically equivalent to the payment services included in the sectoral license. So we see two types of impacts. One type of impact on the crypto asset service providers, placing an additional regulatory burden on them. And then we see a more favorable impact for payment services providers, since they are being given a new business opportunity to partner with a crypto asset service provider in order to facilitate the compliant provision of services in relation to electronic money token. But also they are in the position to provide crypto asset services autonomously. Which are those crypto asset services? Those that are being deemed equivalent to their payment services included in the sectoral license. There is a list of that. It includes also what we would say brokerage services from a financial instruments perspective. So transfers, execution of crypto orders, and so on. Now, whether there is a value shift, although this sounds quite promising from a business potential perspective, the use of stablecoins remains modest, and the policy intention at leadership level is also that it remains modest and that it retains a subsidiary role vis-à-vis the central bank currency. So, is there a value shift? We cannot say that, at least in the context I just described, but definitely there are new opportunities being created for payment services providers. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Konstantinos. A totally different angle, but this is the reality. Mixing up crypto with fiat, trying to see end-to-end, where are the risks outside the fiat ecosystems or not. Now I'm going to invite Konrad, representing one of the biggest global players involved as well in payments. Please, Konrad, what's your view in this respect?
Thank you so much, Dan, and I'm really happy to be back at this esteemed panel. It's been a few years since I last joined, so I see it's growing, a lot of attention, a lot of enthusiasts of payments, which is great. So thank you for inviting me. There's been a lot already mentioned about what I wish to touch base on, so perhaps I will focus on two features that resonates the most with me, with us in Visa, and something that we are striving to deliver to the markets from ever since PSD was emerged. Trust in solutions, trust in the industry, trust in the ecosystem. This was the starting point for Governor Badea's speech, and it definitely is one of the key aspects of what we have been trying to deliver. We know that with PSD2, it was kind of a revolutionary step to change the ecosystem, introducing strong customer authentication, very advanced fraud protection measures. Last few years has been a bit of a testing field for all of us. Central Eastern Europe, as we all know, is much more advanced because of our appetite and receptiveness to new innovative technologies to adopt those payment innovations for a good reason. And we as Visa, of course, see it very vividly with contactless payments being seen everywhere, adaptable everywhere, with e-commerce payments emerging also in an instant payment world. This is absolutely crucial. But with what Gabriela said, I think this is essential message. In Romania, but not only in Romania, we see still relatively low level of financial literacy, digital skill set, something that we as an industry definitely need to improve. And trust, which I mentioned at the beginning, is absolutely key word here to be delivered. With all the features that will be introduced after PSD3, PSR, will be enforceable, so strengthened fraud measures for the industry. Much more focus on consumer protection. All of us as an industry needs to face additional operational end cost burden, let's face it, that we need to deliver. But with that said, we need to make sure that all our efforts will be fully recognized by the consumer as something they want to embrace. Because without that, we'll make all those investments without any tangible effort and effect on the market. So this is something that we need to do. Very strongly collaborate with each other. Banks, payment organizations, central banks, fintech society, all the players, we need to have the very same goal. So on one hand, embrace what's coming with a regulation, but in a smart way, risk-averse way when we are trying to, adopt all those technologies with something that we believe may be a crucial point here. So on one point, advancing the technologies. On the other hand, everything that we are doing is to adjust it to the consumer needs. So from this perspective, maybe I will leave it for another set of questions. I think we all need to work collaboratively to aim to this goal.
Thank you very much, Konrad. Keywords as well. You connected very good with what Gabriela was mentioning. Last but not the least, I will invite my colleague from the central bank. I think he's the best position to connect regulations and value. Ionuț, having also research interests, please give our view.
Thank you, sir, very much. Indeed, it's a great honor to be here with all of you, with all the stakeholders that share an important, each one of you, stakeholders in the payment chain. Because we have here, like we have from fintechs and for the payment institution that we know that are one of the most innovative part of the payment chain. And also we have traditional banks that have and still will play a major role, at least for the next 3 to 5 years, and also have the payment schemes, and also have all the effort that has put at the council level for, and also Minister of Finance for Cyprus will shared already, each one of you shared what will characterize these payment ecosystems based on the regulation that is coming on the PSD3 and the PSR regulation. And of course, in my opinion and other NCA's opinions, that this will not be so-called a revolution, because anyone is expecting this regulatory package, but in the end, this will not be a revolution, but more about enhancing the measures and also to scale up some businesses that in some points have some constraints in accessing, for example, the payments data in the to the open banking system. Of course, one of the things that the PSD3 package will envisage will be this harmonization across the CEE, especially because in some jurisdictions was an uneven application of the PSD2, for example, requirements, as already mentioned by the Eli and also for the Konrad and also respectfully by the Gabriela. But unfortunately, there are some needs to stronger the security measures at the level of the payment service users in order to be protected. Because unfortunately, at this stage, we are very much involved in the fight of fraud fighting, indeed, and this is necessary to, and the PSR regulation will enforce some additional measures in this respect. Of course, we can name it, a few of them, but I think it will bring more clarity in order to tackle this fraud problem. Because in the end, the statistics, for at least for 2024, 2025, also at EBA, also EDCB, just showed that this was unbalanced for burden of supporting losses, and because at least for the transfer credit at the EU level, not Romania, close to 90% of the losses were supported by the payment service users. And one of the problems that at the regulatory level and also the Council and also the European Commission try to balance this burden, but without shifting this burden to the financial institutions, to the traditional banks, and also for in order to ensure compliance, and also for the payment institutions to have a fair access to the payments account data through open banking, because this was one of the major things. And also what Eli mentioned, in the first stages, for example, when redefining the customer authentication procedures, the elements that had been used in the first stages, where the proposal was to have 2 factors from the biometrics in order to have this, but does not give enough traction to be applied in this, and will we stay compliant with the 2 elements when the different categories, knowledge, inheritance, and possession. But in the end, what the PSR will bring, this will enforce the security measure and payment service for the protection of the payment service users in order to, and the value added to this will be a more competitive market in the payment chain, because it's the ultimate goal of the PSR to have this competition ensured under the regulatory perspective, but also to ensure resilience, because digitalization is not coming alone, it's coming with some risks, the cyber risks, etc. We have a major interplay with the other pieces of legislation, with DORA, and etc., and so on. But in the end, is to have this fair access to all the parties involved, also traditional banks, also fintechs, payment institutions, and also this is a major interplay with the MiCA, as very well Konstantinos put this with the cost person. Which of the services, of the cost services, are payment services? Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Yunus. So a lot of meanings for the same word, value. Thank you very much for the contribution. Because the panel is also about structural implications, we cannot avoid talking about customers. There is a lot of tech, but at the end of the day, we should look carefully to the real economy, to the customer experience, to all the pieces of the puzzle that transfer value for all of us. My second question will be, at the end of the day, who will be in charge for managing customers' relationships within the combined payments, tech, and financial ecosystems? Regional competitions offers fruits for citizens, customers, within a multi-rails, multi-chains, multi-schemes ecosystems. So a lot of multiverse, we can continue, but this is the reality that we are living. Please address in this respect your view in this, for this question. I will start now with Ionuț to have a central bank view, because we do care about financial inclusion, we do care about security, we do care about financial education. We are supporting a lot all the initiatives promoting better digital skills in order to avoid risks, because you have seen that the risks are not only in banking, are outside banking, but the closing for them is also in banking. So in this respect, Ionuț, please give us your view.
Yes, just to continue on that, because I think this is a more perspective of how will be managed, for example, the data and the customer relationship will be more on the commercial side, more on the innovative side, more of the financial institution that will apply the payment service regulation. But in the end, from the regulatory perspective, I think the one who will manage this relationship better will be the one who will manage to combine trust in the payment services for sure, and also to combine access to the data, and also to have a seamless execution of payment transaction based on the regulation of perspective, of course, based on the correct application of the strong customer authentication procedures in order to identify the payers in different cases scenario, because in the goal for the regulator is not to have one gatekeeper, not to have one single, for example, big players, but I think it's likely to be, because we don't know yet, we'll have some more involvement of big platforms, and also with our orchestrator, as of course traditional banks will play a major role in the future for the next 3 to 5 years, and it is also the opinion of the European Commission and other analyses that have been done at the EU level, that the traditional banks will be still part of these ecosystems for the next 5 years, for sure. But we also have involved the fintechs, because they are more agile, as Eli already mentioned, because the innovation should also characterize these ecosystems, but not it is also to be mentioned the big techs, because they also play a major role together with this. And I think the future will be from this perspective, with the ultimate goal, for example, of course, for the consumers, to have a more reliable trust, and in the end to benefit from the innovation, because in the end the consumer, the payment service user, is the one that will benefit from this innovation that will come with this multi-rails, multi-schemes, because and also in the end will be how we will integrate these payment schemes at the EU level at least, and also international. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ionuț. In fact, the question is about managing relationships, but this is the diplomatic approach. But in fact, it's about sharing responsibility and who's accountable, pro rata for the customer data, for the customer money, for the customer, let's say, situation and experience. Eli, please go on. What's your view?
Right. That's a very difficult topic, but at the same time, very important. I think the starting line is that the data is the data of the consumer. So the consumer owns the data. So we could have this data could be in different places. It could be with banks, could be with PIs, it could be elsewhere with big tech, but the consumer has to be the one giving consent to access that data. So this is, I think, very, very important to start there. And once we have this, I would say, starting point, then the next question is do we believe in open data society or not? I think in the EU, it's very clear that the answer is yes, we do. We started with open banking, which I think didn't deliver yet its potential for many reasons. The most important one is that fragmentation that is still there across, the board. Definitely, we believe the more you go into integrating, this area, the better would be for consumers, because providers could then, propose solutions that are applicable across the EU and they don't need to adapt to each and every, member state. So definitely we believe in open banking, open finance, open data. I mean, when you see what's happening to FIDA, I think it's a catastrophe, it's dead, most likely. But the problem in this area, as I said in the beginning, it is hard because it's not only technical, it's not only about competition. You have also an element that is very important right now in the EU, and that's strategic autonomy, and then the role that big techs are playing, and then how does that interfere with the banking world, etc. And I think this is making it harder because I would say Gabriela and the banks in general are saying oh, be aware of these, big techs coming and, doing unfair competition, etc. Fair enough, but then this is not taking, I would say the discussion to what is the best for consumers. I think it is stopping at a level which makes sense given what's happening right now. But I guess in few years, this debate will come back again, because I think what would be more important is what is the value, going back to the value that is provided to consumers. And I believe we need to go further into having an open data society. So definitely banking, finance, and maybe even to other sectors.
Thank you very much, Eli. Because you mentioned the buzzword FIDA, I will invite Gabriela to give the banking industry perspective. Please, Gabriela.
Thank you very much. It's a sensitive subject for us, FIDA, to be honest with you. And we promoted our position, which is similar like the European Banking Federation position, that we consider is not the moment for FIDA yet, or the regulation need the project of the draft of regulation need the reconsideration. Regarding the first question that you ask, I think the client relationship will be won by the players that will provide access, simplicity, and also safety. Access, many players will be interested to be on the market, not necessarily PSP, but also TPP. And I think it's a huge interest in this area because we have 19 million inhabitants in Romania. And even I mentioned before, I underlined 75% financial inclusion in Romania. It's a market with potential, also on financial plus diaspora, indeed. It's a market with great potential, also on financial intermediation, but financial inclusion. I mentioned before financial intermediation because also credit will be part of this PSD3 and open finance in fact. So it's very important to see the market, the provenience of the players, and also for the Ministry of Finance to see also the revenues that will have to the budget, a function of the if it's a juridical person from Romania or a foreign one. I think it's very important to the second pillar, safety, because PSR comes with or focuses on VOP, verification of payee, but you already know from Romania we have beneficiary name display service since 2022. Almost 21 banks are part of this service. But guess what? The clients, not all the clients, are interested to make the match between the IBAN and the name of the beneficiaries. So it will be our task, the banks and the other players, to convince the clients that it's need to make the correspondence between the IBAN and the name of the beneficiary's name. Also, the customers will have their own transaction limits that will be somehow, in my opinion, a problem in some situation, not in all, I don't want to mention all situation, but in some situation will be about the basic digital competency, I mean now. And also we have more and specific measures, anti-fraud measures, in order to mitigate this risk. I must underline that we sustain that we need to introduce mandatory discipline, digital education in schools. We supported to introduce financial education discipline, like a mandatory discipline, and we have it in our curricula since 2020. We also, the Romanian Association of Banks, sustained the elaboration of a national strategy, and now we discuss with the OECD in order to support us to introduce digital education for our clients. So my final conclusion is it's very important that the relationship will be won by the interface, will be safety, not necessarily by the best interface.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. A lot of things to discuss and to debate further on from your speech. Thank you very much. Talking about the revenues to the budget, talking about citizens, I'm inviting the Ministry of Finance, but also to go for that multiverse, to go for a different angle. Konstantinos, please have the floor and tell us about customers, citizens, and of course, multiverse approach.
Thank you very much, Professor. Very interesting conversation. Please allow me to approach the issue from a rather institutional than commercial perspective. And yes, when it comes to financial innovation, it is about data in essence. Artificial intelligence needs data. Crypto assets are encrypted data. Big data, cloud, you store data. So it's all about data. And another legal question that arises is, to what extent can data be considered an asset, a thing in legal terms? So having said that, it is absolutely clear it had been identified years ago that there would have been an issue with big techs exactly because of their access to large volumes of data, so that they can get an understanding of consumer preferences, consumer attitude. Imagine that, I will say, the kindergarten example we have been told years ago when financial innovation was appearing. You are on your bus station on Facebook. Facebook sees what you're doing. Immediately you get a notification about an investment that's tailored to your needs. So this issue, indeed, it's existent. It had been identified, and it is intrinsically linked with the nature of financial innovation as being data in essence. Now, from an open banking perspective, allow me to go back to the context I described and said that the PSD3, PSR open banking provisions do not apply when it comes to transactions involving electronic money tokens. The reason, therefore, having been that it would have been very disproportionate. Nevertheless, this is something to be included in the future review of the PSD3 PSR, but at the moment, when it comes to payment transactions involving stablecoins, open banking provisions do not apply. And a last point of my intervention relating to the customer journey and the customer and the consumer protection in provisions embedded in PSD. Just to say that exactly because of their solidity, this had been acknowledged by the EBA, by the European Commission, that one of the reasons for having such a solid European payments market, is exactly the existence of strong customer authentication, consumer protection, and other consumer-related provisions. For this reason, those provisions are now starting to deploy an external effect. You will see similar requirements in the concept of crypto asset services. So as time evolves, we will see that the standards of the payment services regulation will become applicable in other fields as well. Thank you.
So another, a different angle as well. So we are in a payment conference, but we talk more about data, not about money. Very, very curious. Please, the last but not the least, Konrad, what's your view?
So maybe for a change, I'll start with data. There was a lot, discussed about this very topic, and for a good reason. Data and consent, in my personal view, are definitely the drivers of the change for PSD3, PSR, but not only. Data Act, open data, open finance, wherever we are with FIDA. It's definitely a route that European policymakers are making and are very determined to do so. And I think with that, we as the general ecosystem, because I'm not talking about only the financial industry, but also the regulatory landscape, and now also non-financial technical service providers, I believe we all have and need to have a role to play in this very structure, because right now the whole idea of a consent will be based also on a choice factor. So it will be up to the consumer to decide which of those players from the generally viewed industry they will pick as their favorite one, which kind of solutions they would like to adopt, and what will be the end benefit for them. We talk a lot about security and trust in security and flawlessness of the solutions. And again, this will be up to the consumer to decide which of those will be adopted. We as Visa, but generally as industry, we have done quite a lot in the last few years with the help of our friends from Central Bank of Romania, to give just one example, to deliver the message that we are building this ecosystem to make it more secure. We are providing the solutions to the end users to make the choices whether to enter into the digital world or not, again referring to lack of this financial literacy, because we are protecting them with this certain level of solutions and products. Right now, with much more enhanced focus on security, fraud prevention, but also in general consumer rights, we believe this is also the right moment to discuss also about the liability that needs to be shifted according to the role that all of us are playing and the new entrants will be playing as well. And this is something I think I see the greatest value for consumers, obviously, but also the ecosystem to adapt to this. This will not come without the cost, we know it, but the fair level of competition and the end game for the consumer being able to choose from the very wide variety of solutions will be something that we should strive to.
Thank you very much. Amazing answers. Also the questions were good, I think. Please, at the end, because time is running, I'm inviting you, the panelists, but also the public, to get a magic stick to prepare a sort of a small alchemy. Please, for several minutes, think what is missing to transform the architecture to have fraud prevention, but not to have a competitive cost, but to have a shared infrastructure. So to have a magic stick in order to transform fraud prevention, to make it a shared infrastructure, and not to make it a competitive cost for each and every one of us. Have this stick, play it for several minutes until you have the answers from the guests here, from the invited panelists. Konrad, you are already in the field. Go on. What's your view in this?
Yeah, I very much wish to have a magic stick and transform the ecosystem for the benefit of all of us. As I said, I think we've done quite a good job on inventing and introducing some of those security features, but if I had this magic wand, I would say that cost-free or cost-less for the consumer and for the clients as well, to build the ecosystem even more protected. This would be my wish list for the industry, to be even more advanced with the communicating the advantages of the digital payments. This comes to the policymakers, and to grasp the adoption of digital payments and digitalization in large for the society. So this would be 3 benefits if I would like to have this magic wand and push it.
Thank you. Gabriela, your magic stick?
My magic stick is created by Transfond, National Bank of Romania, and the Romanian Association of Banks. I'm glad to announce that Transfond is developing a national anti-fraud scheme that will be very soon is operational, and by the end of the year, I hope some banks will be part of this national anti-fraud scheme. It's very important that each transaction will have a rating, low risk, medium risk, or high risk, and each of us will know if we need to stop that transaction, if it's, we have indication that it's a fraud. And I think it's a very important step for the Romanian banking community, and tomorrow we'll have a meeting together with Claudiu Negra and our colleagues from the Romanian police in order to discuss how Romanian police will be part of fraud detect. I invite all the colleagues from the commercial banks to be on that meeting tomorrow on anti-fraud committee, because it's very important to involve also police to provide us information. Now we have in place something very important, and we raise this importance, how to make exchange of information between Romanian police and colleagues from banks. We exchange the data, the contacts of each representative of anti-fraud committee and the Romanian police representative. And if a client files a complaint to a police station, that police officer calls us to block the amount of the money. So these are the greatest issues regarding the anti-fraud measures. Also, my colleagues have more anti-fraud tools in order to stop the frauds, but to mitigate the risk. But it's very important one thing, and I discussed earlier with our colleague from the Romanian police. We need to create a legal framework in order to block the amount from the beneficiary's bank in case it's fraud. We still discussed this, but I hope till the end of the year will be sustained by the new government that will come in place and the Ministry of Finance, thank you, to promote this legal framework in order to have something specific. We have an auto-regulation now, but I'm convinced that we need a legal framework until PSR will apply in 2 years. And also, I underline the fact that we need to improve the level of digital education and the interest of the people for our messages, because it's a low interest. I don't know if it's similar in your countries, but we face this problem here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabriela. This is a challenge for all of us, even for the students. We are challenging them to be more focused and interested, let's say. Konstantinos, fraud prevention, please give us your thought.
Thank you. I will only say one thing. It is about compliance. Compliance means costs. Let's be clear on that. There are tools that have been developed in the meantime, RegTech tools, which facilitate the compliance job, including fraud prevention. Nevertheless, as mentioned before, everything relies on data. So data accessibility and data cost will determine the rest. The tools, the technology to assess them is there. No one is obliged to do the impossible. We all know it. But at the same time, we must never forget that compliance brings costs by itself. It is a cost-bearing function. It's not a profit-making one.
Thank you very much. Your notes?
Yeah, thank you so much. Just to complement a little bit and to echo what Konstantin said, and also for Gabriela, I think the most important thing is to align those incentives to participate to those sharing fraud data mechanisms, because in the end, the first one, it is to have this aligned, not to see the fraud prevention as a compliance cost, but also as a shared utility for everyone that is involved in the payment chain. First one, and the second one, I think we had to, in order to be efficient, this had to be a real-time sharing mechanism, because otherwise we have different parties, because indeed what Gabriela said, the first stage is to have integrated all the PSPs or traditional banks and the payment institutions, etc. But in the end, as also would be an obligation and a specific requirements under the payment service regulation that all the PSPs should participate, and also another stakeholders that are involved in the payment chain as telecom operators, electronic platform, and etc. This sharing mechanism should be clarified and be extended at the level that is useful and efficient in the payment chain. And of course, what Gabriela said, we had to clarify these obligations and the liability when we have a shared ecosystems from the two perspectives. The first one, it is when somebody in one part of the one stakeholder in the payment chain will misuse those data, those information about fraud, and who's going to be liable on this. And of course, the other side, it is when some of the PSPs, for example, will not participate in this shared ecosystems for the sharing the payment service data, and the payment service regulation will be very clear on that, because the liability will shift to the PSPs that is not participating into this sharing mechanism. And of course, in the end, we had to be proactive, because we cannot wait until 2028. We had to put it very open. We had still two more years to prepare for this, and of course we have done great preparation with the Romanian Banking Association in order to construct this sharing mechanism in the end. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Ionut. Last but not the least, European Payment Institutions Federation, to have a more shared infrastructure and a bigger stick. Please, Eli.
So I'll try to be very, very quick. And I would say that if I had a magic wand, I will use it in different ways, you know, not to change the regulation. But like one issue actually, when I started, you know, working in this field more than 20 years ago, and I started at the European Banking Federation back then. And when we were having, you know, the different banking associations around the table, one issue that we were asking, like, how can we improve the fight against fraud? And in the top three, you always had sharing of information. And when you look like 20 years after that, we don't have it. So I think I would change this. I would say improve the sharing of information amongst the different stakeholders. And now stakeholders, as I said before, the list of stakeholders is getting like bigger. It's not only financial institutions anymore. So I think if we want to be efficient, we need to have a better system of sharing information, because this way fraudsters cannot benefit from data protection, I would say.
Great, thank you very much. So these were the questions. 5 minutes left. Daniela is already up. She's willing to turn off our mics. So please hurry up with the last.
Questions from the audience?
We have also one thought, food for thought for each panelist. Please, one key takeaway to connect, let's say, open banking with banking business models, with a CEE infrastructure, with a fraud, whatever you think of relevance for the audience. Include also offline payments, DLT, tokenization, whatever you think relevant, to connect all these relevant pieces and to give a strong takeaway for the public here. Please, each and everyone. We'll start from here. Ionuț.
Just in one line, I think I don't want to keep the time more. I think it is also the discussion is not anymore about compliance. It is need to balance between compliance and also innovation, and to ensure from the regulatory perspective that the ecosystems through the digitalization process has sufficient support in order to innovate. And also for the regulator, it is that I think we'll rethink the way we will for example, give access in the future with agentic payments, because you know that is coming from. And the question is, it is indeed, we expected so much in the PSD3 package, but it is still prepared to tackle those kind of problems. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Konstantinos. Please.
The only thing I would like to add is that as time advances, we will see that standards, concepts, requirements developed in the context of the payment services will start to apply in other fields of financial services as well. And crypto is actually not. I'm mentioning it not because it is a hot as a topic, but because crypto assets are traded at crypto exchanges as if they were financial instruments, but at the same time they are being used for payment services as if they were a payment instrument. And for this reason, we will see that there will be an extraneity of the effect of the requirements embedded in payment services regulation. Thank you.
Very good point, Konstantinos. We wrote it down. Gabriela, please.
Our focus should be on protecting our clients and to increase financial inclusion.
Thank you very much. Conrad?
So I'll end with what I start. In order to gain trust in legislation, in the industry, we need to fulfill our obligations to deliver on different layers, on fraud prevention, on digital advancement, on making sure that crisis situations, as you referred to in offline, are also properly addressed, as well as upcoming innovations in order to what Janut said about agentic AI. So all those features, we know that will happen. We should address them. And with that, I hope this trust will be gained at sufficient level.
Thank you very much. Eli, please.
Well, I would say that the future should be and we should continue focusing on consumers, customers. You know, this is the main shift. I know the geopolitical context is making this hard. You know, sometimes Europe is going, I would say, not in the right direction fully in this perspective, because consumers are not put, you know, in the center anymore, but like other issues. So I think what made the EU strong is like this focus on the consumer and competition and openness on the European passport. I think this is the right way forward. We should not forget that that's what made the EU very strong.
Amazing. Thank you very much. So coming from consumers, I will add extra 3 C's. Conversation, but serious. We need it, definitely, as we see here. Cooperation, but strong. We also need it. And the last, commitment. Commitment to do something together. Either a pilot project or a takeaway to start to do something with impact in the real economy in order to change the whole ecosystem. Thank you very much for coming here. Thank you very much for your amazing contribution.